He had his gun, so he just swung it open.
I start to notice that, the atmosphere feels a little bit weird.
First thing he seen was this 6.5 foot tall, broad shoulder, dark hair. That freaked him out.
We hadn't talked to her about like life and death and what any of that means. She's 3 years old,
So we turned around. Suddenly there's a whole tree falling across the road.
And she was describing to us that, there was a deceased person that she could see visually.
You're listening to Cryptid Clues, where we tackle the ever-expanding history and mystery of monsters and supernatural madness every Monday. You can find us at CryptidClues.ca for more information, or even check out exclusive content and support us at patreon.com/CryptidClues.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back. I am your host, Taylor, and boy, oh boy, has it been a good minute since our last episode. So a little bit of housekeeping. I must apologize for not delivering on that previous last episode where I was going to reunite with Reuben and we just talked shop before taking our break. Our schedules just weren't aligning at the right times, and before we knew it, a few weeks had already passed, so we just called it, life. Though, my gosh, there's a lot of new changes in both my life and Reuben's, summer break. It was really needed, that break. I don't want to say I was feeling burnt out, but between this and my other podcast and just things going on in my personal life, it was a well-deserved breath of fresh air to take that summer off and just to kind of rethink how I'm going to approach this show in the new year. Now, I alluded to this original in the final episodes leading up to the finale that I would be working on a new release schedule for the show, and it's still a work in progress, but it's kind of funny because even though I was technically on a break, I was 100% still taking notes and finding encounters and gathering information on things as of late, which is going to be steering us into today's topic regarding the Three-Eye Atlas. Before I get into that, I just want to shout out our email, as always, cryptidclues@gmail.com. And of course, a massive thank you to all of you who have still been listening to the show, either since the start, halfway through, or at the end, right before we went on our break and decided to dive headfirst into our whole collective archive of information. I was keeping tabs on the show numbers, and even without any new episodes dropping the past few months, we're still getting many new listeners, and that has just been fueling me to make this comeback to the show. So, between now and December 31st, I've decided that I'm going to be releasing just a few episodes on a limited run just to kind of close this year off on a high note. And so, come January 2026, I'll drop another update, hopefully have a more consistent schedule idea, for around that time. Nothing as frequent as our previous weekly drops, as I have a fairly dynamic new schedule that I'm adjusting to, but we're going to figure something out because I've greatly missed our discussions and breakdowns of all the latest and greatest content that needs to be discussed in this unbiased and, what I like to think at least, fair and logical position that helps bring you folks genuinely reliable information to help you form your own opinions and deductions. I guess loosely genuinely reliable information because what we're talking about is, well, aliens and cryptids and whatnot, so take it with a grain of salt, I guess. But don't you worry. I'm still coordinating with Reuben. I'm going to get him on the show with me once we finally align our schedules. So, without further ado, let's get into this. Now, the Three-Eye Atlas. Perhaps you've heard of it. Maybe you haven't. It first crossed my radar a few months ago on our local news channels. It soon began circulating conversations at my work. And now, of course, space is forever ongoing, with objects flying left, right, and center across the cosmos. So why is this any different, this object? And again, like context, Three-Eye Atlas, a comet. Now, this is the third known object from outside of our solar system to be discovered passing through our solar backyard. Earth's astronomers have actually categorized it as an interstellar object because of its shape and orbital path. So if you look at the trajectory of an object, you can see where it will go or land. Now, that also works in the reverse when you trace it. So you can see that that comet clearly originates from outside our solar system. Now, there are two paths forward with this topic. The first will be with, NASA and somewhat the scientific community and what they're having to say regarding this. Now, the second will be more along the lines of theories, conspiracies, and I've incorporated, again, a member of the scientific community who has been very vocal about this. And so we'll be examining both of these avenues. Hopefully, it will allow you to form your own perspective on what exactly we're dealing with here. So, since this discovery back at the start of July 2025, it was quickly deduced that the comet poses no threat to Earth and will remain far away. Now, its size, in case you're curious, is estimated to be between 1,400 feet and 3.5 miles in diameter. Its color, speed, and direction are all consistent with what we expect from a comet, as per NASA. Now, the comet itself has an icy nucleus and a coma, which is a bright cloud of gas and dust that surrounds the comet and is emitted at increasing rates as it approaches the sun. Having come closest to the sun back on October 30th of this year, it came within 130 million miles, also putting it just outside the orbit of Mars. And at the time, Earth was on the opposite side of the sun. Now, when it was first discovered back in July, that was when it was passing Jupiter's orbit at an incredible speed of 137,000 miles per hour, an equivalent of 221,000 kilometers per hour. Now, as it draws closer to the sun's gravity actually helps to increase its speed, thus pushing it to reach speeds of 153,000 miles per hour, or an equivalent of 246,000 kilometers per hour. As many comets get closer to the sun, they'll begin to heat up and release gases. This off-gassing can cause small shifts in its actual trajectory. Now, I'm going to pull up a photo here, if you're watching the video version, of the Hubble's captured photograph of the comet. It's super cool. Now, the alternative side to this, what if it's not a comet? And again, many members of the scientific community, they've been really advocating in the fact that, hey, this is an actual comet, and they've been reporting on its speed, its trajectory, and they've been highlighting all the different attributes that are in line with it being just a comet, just an object moving through space, nothing very different from that. So what if it's really an alien mothership? That's a bit of a curveball. There's a lot of people that have subscribed to this theory. I'm going to admit some of the information is quite persuasive, so let's just break it down a little bit here. A.V. Loeb, a Harvard astrophysicist who gained notoriety after first hypothesizing, that's the word I'm trying to say, that the Oumuamua was in fact an alien craft, which ties heavily into what we're talking about here with this comet, 3I Atlas. Now, because it echoes it almost, the Oumuamua was the first interstellar object to be discovered passing through our solar system back on October 19th of 2017. Observations deduced that it was wandering throughout the Milky Way galaxy, unattached to any star system, for hundreds of millions of years before finally passing through our solar system. But it is, in fact, not an alien craft, as Avi initially proposed. Now, jumping ahead to today, Avi is back at it with the hypothesis that this newly discovered interstellar object is actually alien technology adrift in our solar system. Avi is so passionate about this topic that he became the founder of the Galileo Project. Now, this is basically a systematic search for evidence of extraterrestrial technology and the artifacts as well. Now, while the Oumuamua did have anomalies in its movements and acceleration, Avi had recently published a paper highlighting the movements and the anomalies of 3I Atlas. That, dare I say, foundation? Maybe that's an incorrect label to give it, but a statement rather has sprouted discussions regarding extraterrestrial probes passing through our solar system. So now we have all these photos out there of close-ups, many from other countries that are reportedly leaked on the internet. There's a lot that we don't know about the comet, but it's those unknown variables that enables humans to fill that gap, if that makes sense, and quite eagerly to do so as well. Some photos I found shared seem to depict the craft with many lights of all different colors on its exterior, in addition to having smaller floating objects actually moving around with it. This is where things get a little convoluted. Back in November, images of the 3I Atlas surfaced with claims online to be from the Japanese Space Agency, While not officially confirmed, the images renewed global interest in the comet when they were posted to the social media platform X, formerly Twitter, of course. So it's just very interesting how you have, NASA, fairly credible, I dare say reliable space agency, posting photos with the Hubble Space Telescope showing, hey, this thing looks just like a comet with interesting lights being emitted from it. But I mean, it's nothing that we haven't seen before. And then you have other images that are supposedly leaked from other worldly space agencies. And these photos show a much more clearly defining object that seems to bear similarities to science fiction ships. So this is where that line in the sand has been drawn, and how do we know what is real and what isn't here? When, now that we're underway into December, it actually won't be long before this interstellar object will get as close to Earth as it ever will. Now, as NASA says no threat regarding the object, NASA also had initiated its planetary defense mission. Now, this is due to the comet displaying behavior that scientists do not understand. This planetary defense includes advanced monitoring systems, spectroscopic analysis, and real-time orbital tracking. Again, this was done recently and fairly silently as well. It's not something that was really made public knowledge. It's obviously public knowledge, but when I say it wasn't public knowledge, I mean in the sense that they weren't throwing this on the news channels. You weren't just going to your 5 o'clock news and getting the updates that, oh, NASA has activated the planetary defense mission. It's just one of those things. If you seek it out, you'll find it rather than being told about it. That, I digress. These measures help with any 3i Atlas behavioral changes, such as acceleration or unusual fragmentation. Something that, there's no risk to Earth, but you always got to keep an eye out the back of your head, right? Now, eventually, after its flyby with Earth, it's going to be continuing on through our solar system and will eventually exit the solar system. But one of the other things, as this object had passed Jupiter, this was another big theory that Avi Loeb had proposed. Now, he was arguing that recent non-gravitational acceleration from 3i Atlas as it was going by Jupiter is not by coincidence. That as it had arrived at Jupiter, it actually had deployed smaller ships into the planet's upper atmosphere, which of course, it's been met with doubt amongst those in NASA's community. It's really interesting to see where this is going to go, because an object like this doesn't come all the time, which you be surprised, because it's a very vast and unending cosmos, and there's things constantly moving and shifting around all the time. But as of now, this is the third documented interstellar object moving through our solar system, which is very exciting. There's a few other reports, too, of people talking about how there's the potential that this is just alien technology, such as not being a mothership with little ships, but maybe it's just a drone. Maybe it's just a satellite that was built by another highly advanced civilization, and it's just passing through. I was making the joke with my friends that wouldn't it be something if it turns out, hey, we can see visually this is an actual alien mothership. We can all see it. And we start hailing it, and it passes by and doesn't even bother to contact us. We think if aliens land on our planet, that's going to create a dynamic. It's going to be a shift in religion. It's going to change human history and our futures and everything, because we're discovering that, hey, aliens exist and they're landing here trying to communicate with us. But what happens if we try to communicate with them and they ignore us? I mean, we have confirmation that aliens exist, but now all of a sudden we're met with this kind of shame. Like, oh, we're not worth the time, which to each his own. There's some people that think we're not worth the time, and others that think, oh, maybe it's our salvation. I digress, though. I just thought it was a funny, kind of humorous theory that maybe these things just, if it is aliens, they just keep on trekking along and they don't really bat an eye at us and what we're doing, because we got a lot of problems to work out before we can start looking at the intergalactic problems on such a larger scale. But anyways, all of this UFO UAP hype, it's not solely focused on the 3i Atlas case. Now, we've covered a few of the UAP UFO congressional hearings that have been held in the past, and just this past September, another one took place, and I would love to do a full breakdown episode of this because it really got into the nitty-gritty. Now, the United States House of Representatives gathered under the title of Restoring Public Trust Through UAP Transparency and Whistleblower Protection. During this hearing, 4 witnesses provided testimonies, 3 being U.S. military veterans and 1 journalist. Jeff Cuillin, U.S. Air Force, Alexandra Wiggins, Senior Navy Chief Petty Officer, and Dylan Borland, U.S. Air Force, as well as the journalist George Knapp. Now, one of my favorite parts of this was the footage. Albeit unverified, this footage depicts a Hellfire missile being launched at an incredibly fast, unknown moving object. It actually makes contact with said object and simply bounces off into another direction. Now, I'm going to play the footage here now, if you are viewing the YouTube version, so you'll see it, and then as you are on listening to this, I'm just going to kind of break it down and just kind of talk about it as you see it, because there's no dialogue in the actual footage itself. So here we go. Okay, so you can see the object is flying by, and then you can see that missile comes along out of the top left corner. It bounces off of it, pings, keeps going, and then the object breaks off into 3 different little objects, all following behind the original main large object. It's quite something. I've never seen anything like that before. The main takeaway from this hearing, however, that I'm going to say, is that the witnesses claim a lack there of transparency from the Pentagon and even accused Arrow of dismissing and representing their claims. When you have a case like this where you have footage, albeit unverified, it's incredible that you are met with improper support to report on something like this. Now, Arrow is the All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, which is a United States Department of Defense office that investigates unidentified anomalous phenomena, UAPs. In short, its sole existence, its sole purpose of its existence is to detect, identify, and attribute unexplained objects in the air, land, at sea, and in space. But at its core, these claims stress the need for strong whistleblower protections in order to help encourage more service members to come forward and report their sightings without fear of professional retaliation. There are so many military individuals that are experiencing these things, and they don't have that support, that backing to come forward and talk about these things. And I'm starting to see that a lot of cases here, when it comes to these congressional hearings, they are former service members, retired senior military officials, that they don't have, I don't want to say a lot on the line, because that doesn't sound fair. They have a lot on the line, but it takes a lot for them to come forward, and they do, and they're putting this information out there for the public. But when you're dealing with younger individuals that are maybe 3 years into their career, 4 or 5 years into their career with the military, and they see something like this, I mean, they're going to be met with a lot of resistance. People are going to probably make fun and mock. And I mean, that's just like anything, even the public sector out here. If you're working and you see something out there, let's say you're a trucker, you see something out on the highway crossing your headlights in front of you, or you see something in the sky flying that it's just unexplainable. Who are you going to tell? You might have a few close friends, but you're going to have a lot of that doubt, and you're going to have a lot of fear. You don't want to be chastised or kicked out of your social groups or just ridiculed. You need that support and that foundation and that community. And I see this community is growing, which is wonderful, because I think more and more people need that support. They really, really do. And in the military, you're dealing with government branch that is out there seeing things that we are not, and dealing with technologies that, heck, there's a lot of technology that I'm unaware of, and the military is probably hands-on with these things, getting to really, really test the limits and see things in response in real time. And that's another thing that was discussed at this hearing, was that these unknown objects are actively engaging in human technology and actually, I don't know if manipulating is the right word, but tampering. They're definitely tampering to a slight degree. And so it's going to be interesting to see where that is going to progress, and how many more people come forward to actually share the stories of that. People working on these bases, working with these advanced human technologies, and then seeing, hey, these unidentified objects are appearing and are actually affecting what we're working on. I think that's fascinating, and it just kind of it shows a slight little bit of objective. I don't know if objective is the right word, but the goals or the thought process behind whatever these things are, whatever's piloting these things, what they're trying to do and what they're trying to accomplish, and why are they doing these things. There's definitely a lot of questions behind these questions, but at the same time, because you see their actions and their actions get reported, then we can kind of deduce, okay, maybe they're doing this because of A, B, or C. And we can kind of break that down a little bit more, and we can have those organic, healthy conversations where we can figure things out. And that's all we need. We need to have that foundation for engaging in healthy conversation. I digress, though. There's so much to break down and to talk about. And I'm curious what you all think about this. Sightings of unknown objects in the skies, they've been skyrocketing these past few months all over the world. And with the incredibly powerful advancements of AI and falsified videos featuring unknown objects and cryptids, we have to be careful. We really, really do, because we're entering a time where seeing is believing, and history can be altered based on what we see and what AI is creating. So it's important to discern what's made for clicks and what is real. It's becoming a lot harder and harder to do that. And I do give sincere kudos to those who navigate those treacherous waters, finding that concrete information. Now, I hope what I provided in today's episode stands as a good kind of entryway and baseline into the Thry Atlas. And it can come off as concrete and reliable, sheds more light, and helps you form your own perspective and opinion on this ongoing developing narrative that is the Thry Atlas and that congressional hearing. There's a lot more information to be found, and it's just going to keep on popping up as we go along, both on the scientific side and the conspiracy theory side as well. But my name is Taylor, and I will be back. As I said at the start of this episode, I have a couple more episodes lined up to release before we close off the 2025 year. Remember, you can reach us directly via CryptidClues@gmail.com. If you have any questions or you're curious otherwise, just follow us on our socials. But I look forward to getting back into the swing of things here and tackling some of these topics again, and just kind of really diving headfirst into the plethora of new content that has just been flooding the internet lately and popping up in conversations, because there's a lot, and it seems like extraterrestrial activity is definitely at the forefront these past few months above everything else. So it's an ongoing and very interesting debacle. Anyways, until next time, everyone, take care and stay safe.